Eyes indie pop rock band from the UK, really made a name for themselves through the affiliation with the super massive UK band The 1975. Having that kind of connection to a band that's so well known and so popular, as polarizing as a band like The 1975 is, can really just propel you to huge heights. You know, regardless of whether you like The 1975 or not, they've got enough of a huge fan base to really bring that pull in and, you know, influence other smaller bands. You can see how they're linked too. They have similar approaches to music. They're both bands that really take inspiration from other eras. The 1975 do it a bit more in an eclectic way, I think, whereas Pale Waves keep it pretty straightforward and just give you standard, you know, verse, chorus, verse pop songs. Whereas the 1975, particularly on the most recent album, took a huge detour and did completely different things compared to what they'd usually done, which isn't necessarily a better thing. It doesn't make them better than Pale Waves, but I guess I'm just saying that for as closely linked as they are, they're not the same band. The thing with Pale Waves though is that since the start they've really lacked an identity for me. This album really hones in on the lack of identity, I think, but we'll get to that. But the debut was similar in the sense that they were so like caught up in their influences that the actual songs themselves didn't really feel particularly very original. For the debut, they were touching on 80s stuff, and this time around, you've got a bit more of a like late 90s, early 2000s inspiration. At times, there's a bit of like a pop punkness to these tracks in the way that they're written, not necessarily in the way that they sound, but a lot of the really simplistic, straightforward, emotionally charged lyrics remind me of those early 2000s bands that kept it very simple and just, you know, didn't really give you anything deep or insightful with the lyrics. It was never really about that from that era, and Pale Waves have that similar feel to them, but the noticeable obvious influences come through straight away. Avril Lavigne on that first track, instantly I was like, this sounds like Avril Lavigne. Alanis Morissette occasionally in the vocals, and then the singer of the Cranberries in the vocals too at points. No Doubt, you know, you've definitely got the very obvious influences coming through on this album, and I've got to say, it just doesn't make for a very unique listen. So not only is the music generally not very that stand out-ish, lyrically it really falls short almost on every track. Change is exactly what you'd expect from a lyrical standpoint, just basically reeling off how the other person needs to change and that they never do. Really standard stuff that I've heard far too much of, and I guess for this to work I'd want a more unique angle to come from it, and there isn't really particularly any uniqueness to how it's written. The line, act like I'm nobody yet you still want to go down on me, very Ashnikko with the way that one's written, and the rest of the track, yeah, just very typical, I need you even though I need you to change stuff. All of that really comes undone though on the chorus, where she basically says, you've hurt me a million times, yet I'm still missing you and I still want you here. It's really hard to feel sympathy for someone that clearly knows that they need the other person to change, and yet they're, you know, able to recognize that they need to change, and somehow they fall into the trap of still wanting them and still wanting that person, despite the fact that they are associating that person with how emotionally hurt you get by them. I don't know, unless it's like some kind of abusive relationship, which isn't really outlined on this track, then it's very difficult to sort of feel sympathy, because it's like, well, you're doing this to yourself, so it just undoes all of the other words that she said previously. You could make a song about it or just confront the issue. I know which one I'd do. Confront the person and explain to them what they're doing, and if they're never going to change, which most people tend not to, let's be honest, then leave. Leave. She's My Religion. Really nailing down the cliches here, just comparing someone to a religion. Just come on. I'm just not here for the lack of maturity in the lyrics. Just so often we're running into things that you've heard 1,000 times before in other songs. The only way you wouldn't think that is if you haven't listened to a huge amount of music and you're pretty young and yet you hear a song like this and think it is original. That would be the only way I think you could look at something like this and think it has total originality. Not to sound pretentious, I mean, I don't want that to come across pretentious at all, but I think you get what I mean with what I'm saying. We've got really standard 2000s worship with the music, and then you've got these kinds of lyrics. It's just nothing nothing I've never heard before. You Don't Own Me has surface level critiques on society to start off with. Doesn't really go anywhere with this lyrical angle, I don't think. She basically just says a few things about how society views people who sleep around as whores. If if a woman doesn't cross her legs, then she's not being ladylike. And then again, once she gets to the chorus, it just becomes so cringy with the way she's wording herself here. You don't own me, I'll do whatever I want to because I'm a psycho. And that's fine that I'm a psycho, basically, that she says. Really odd. Can't really tell if it's an attempt at humour. If it is, it wasn't very funny. And it ends up feeling more like, that Ava Max song, which I didn't think landed very well either. There's something about labelling yourself as a psycho without really backing it up with your words or your attitude that just never lands. I can't think of any time where it lands at all. You've got to really sell it. You've got to make a song that feels more like you're watching a film or something like that, rather than just acting like you're a psycho and you just sound like, a 16-year-old girl just getting angry out of nowhere. Tomorrow is one I'm conflicted on, I must say, because I think if you're a young person and you hear this message and you relate to some of the things that's mentioned, there's the line about, someone being, someone having issues with their mental health, someone having issues with their sexuality, and then she's kind of coming through to say it's going to be okay. But then, the way it's worded on the chorus, I just don't know if it's particularly very good advice. I appreciate the message, but it's just the way it's sold. It's all very everything's gonna be okay, tomorrow's another day, tomorrow brings something new, and that doesn't really help fix someone's problem. I don't get what she's trying to say with that. Imagine if you had really major issues that are clouding you and just overcoming everything in your life, and someone just says, well, tomorrow's another day, wake up tomorrow and it'll be fine. Who wants to hear that? Who needs that advice? I couldn't imagine anyone thinking, you know what? Wow, you've changed my life. It feels like, if anything, she felt like she had to say something, so she just picked something that she found on Pinterest or something, those kind of mugs with really cliche advice, little descriptions on them. It just feels like that, and the lack of weight, the lack of personal sort of influence going into this is just so apparent. It just feels like she's just saying whatever she feels like she has to say, if anything else. Look, I don't want to completely take away the impact if you're someone that hears a song like this and feels like it helps you. That's absolutely fine. But I just don't know what it really helps with. That's all I'm really trying to say. I just needed you continues constant cringe, though. This might be the worst track, with the way that she talks on the verses about how society, once again, tells you that you need all these materialistic things. You might think or convince yourself that a one-night stand or a fling is going to help your problems. But then she's like, by the chorus, actually all I needed was you. I just think it's missing some kind of passion. The power behind the vocals isn't there. And then when you read into the lyrics, what she's saying is, again, just really general stuff. I just can't help but feel like nothing is really coming from the heart. I feel like there's got to be some kind of conspiracy here with the way they're writing their songs. Did they say to themselves, look, let's see how many lyrical cliches we can hit in a single album and see if anyone notices. Let's just try it. Run 2 carries on the trend as well. I don't know, man, just not for me, this really at all. I just can't find anything about this band that stands out. They're not even that particularly catchy either, many of these tracks. So, you know, sometimes you can give a pass to the lyrics if the music sounds great. There's plenty of bands I've done that before in the past, but no, there's just not enough to this music that stands out. I'm too often being reminded of other bands and other artists on every song. Even the final track, which is a ballad, a pretty heartfelt ballad about how, you know, she just wants to find a way or find the answer on how to live life without feeling the way she does, which I think you could sell really well, but again, the way that it's structured feels all too familiar, and again reminds me of other artists in the past, like a 2000s piano ballad that would make it in the charts. That's the issue with this album. Too much of it is too familiar. I gotta go 4.5 out of 10, unfortunately. Just not hitting at all, but let me know your thoughts in the comments. I think there'll be some fans of this band that might find this video and get really annoyed, which is fine, but you've got to see where I'm coming from, man. Like, is this the best you could put out there? You know, if you're a new, fresh band and all you're doing is sounding like other bands before you, it's not great. Definitely needs some kind of revamping in terms of the lyrics, and yeah, just not feeling this. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you have heard this, I would love to hear what you think. Thank you for watching this review. Hopefully you have a good day as well. Subscribe if you haven't already, and goodbye.